In the early morning of May 23, 1618, Prague simmered with tension, city divided along religious and political lines, where Protestant nobles and Catholic officials eyed each other with suspicion and simmering hatred. The Habsburg monarchy, determined to enforce Catholic authority across Bohemia, had imposed restrictions on Protestant freedoms, igniting resentment that had been quietly building for decades. Within the ornate walls of Prague Castle, arguments erupted over the fate of churches, lands, and the very soul of Bohemia. The air thick with anger, fear, and the scent of incense that masked a city on the brink of violence. A delegation of Protestant nobles led by Count Thurn and Count Martinic marched to confront the royal governors, armed with both rhetoric and resolve, determined to resist the erosion of their rights. The council chambers were tense, filled with the clatter of argument and the uneasy weight of history pressing down upon everyone present. As centuries-old grievances simmered to the surface, voices rose, tempers flared, and the atmosphere became charged with the promise of action, a storm gathering within the gilded halls. In a moment that would echo across centuries, anger overtook diplomacy. The Protestant nobles seized two of the emperor's representatives, Jaroslav Borita of Martinez and Slavata of Clem, and hurled them out of a third-story window, their bodies plummeting dozens of feet to the stone courtyard below. Miraculously, both men survived, landing in a heap of manure that cushioned their fall, an ironic twist that would be recounted in whispered astonishment across Prague. This violent act, shocking in its audacity, became known as the Second Defenestration of Prague, a term that would haunt European history and ignite one of the continent's bloodiest conflicts. The event was far more than a protest, was a declaration that centuries of tolerance, compromise, and hierarchy could be shattered in an instant. News of the defenestration spread swiftly, carried by couriers, gossip, and letters, stoking fears and inflaming passions from Prague to Vienna, Dresden, and beyond. Catholic authorities were enraged, seeing the act as an unforgivable rebellion, while Protestants hailed it as a necessary stand for their faith and freedom. Within weeks, alliances shifted, armies mobilized, and Bohemia became the epicenter of a struggle that would engulf Europe in war for decades. The 30 Years' War which followed was one of the most devastating conflicts in European history, leaving entire regions depopulated, cities burned, and economies shattered. From the ashes of Prague's tension, empires clashed, mercenary armies roamed the countryside, and the suffering of ordinary citizens intensified the human cost of political and religious strife. The Defenestration of Prague became more than a singular act of rebellion. It became a symbol, a catalyst, and a warning that unchecked conflict and intolerance can erupt into catastrophe. Historians later reflected on the irony that a moment of sheer impulsive violence could trigger a conflict, spanning 3 decades, altering the political and religious map of Europe forever. In the centuries that followed, the story was recounted in chronicles, letters, and treatises, each emphasizing the courage, audacity, or recklessness of the men who threw their enemies from the castle window. Prague Castle still stands, its walls whispering the memory of that fateful day, a reminder that history can hinge on the smallest of acts carried out with the greatest of consequences. Even today, visitors hear the echo of those plunging bodies in the stone courtyards, a metaphor for the fragility of peace and the volatility of human ambition. The Defenestration of Prague teaches that history is often shaped not by grand strategies alone, but by sudden, dramatic gestures that ignite the passions of nations. The tale of the defenestration is layered with intrigue, irony, and tragedy, revealing the complexity of human motivations, the perils of fanaticism, and the unpredictable consequences of rebellion. It is a story that reminds us how a single event, born of fear, frustration, and defiance, can trigger a chain reaction with consequences beyond imagination, forever altering the course of continents. From a simple act of throwing men from a window, Europe plunged into decades of suffering, diplomacy, and conflict that would define the political and religious landscape for generations. The Defenestration of Prague is not merely an anecdote of violence. It is a window into the human heart, where courage, desperation, conviction collide in moments that echo through history. It is a tale of rebellion, survival, and the immense power of symbolic action, proving that sometimes a single act can ignite the world. Like and subscribe so you don't miss even more interesting historical facts.